Story 1, 19 years with a company, bought into their vision, started as a team lead and worked my way up to executive. 60-hour weeks were not uncommon, and I filled a passport with stamps making things happen. Received a 5-minute call out of the blue saying my position was being eliminated and had 30 minutes to pack my belongings. Story 2. Being honest and working hard for a company that rewards yes-persons, sycophants, and backstabbers. Story 3. I am a volunteer who represents abused and neglected children in court procedures, which means I regularly get yelled at by abusive parents and have to fear for my safety because I told the court this unstable person should not have her children returned to her. Story 4. I let a friend of a coworker move into the apartment I was renting because he needed a place to stay as soon as possible. He ended up being a disgusting, disrespectful, cocaine-addicted, narcissistic squatter. Live and learn. Story 5. I used to work at a hotel, and when I was still very new, I received a phone call from the Central Reservation line. They told me that someone with a disability was coming in and that the Americans with Disabilities Act required us to give them an adjoining room so their caretaker could stay with them. If I remember correctly, it had been a while, so the details are slightly fuzzy. Turned out that was not true, and I was written up about a month later when they arrived. There is no such law, and I did not expect the Central Reservation line to misinform me about policy. I got in trouble for the first time since middle school because I thought I was following the rules and helping a disabled person. Story 6. This is the best example I know of. Ignaz Semmelweis was a doctor who was beaten to death for suggesting that doctors should wash their hands before assisting pregnant women during childbirth. His protocol reduced childbirth-related deaths from 1 in 5 to 1 in 50, but he was forcibly confined to an insane asylum and died as a result. Story 7. The Saga of Witold Pilecki. He was voluntarily imprisoned in Auschwitz, organized a resistance movement inside the camp, compiled a report on the atrocities for the Allied forces, escaped, fought in the Warsaw Uprising, and was eventually arrested, tortured, and executed by the Polish communist authorities after the war. Story 8. My personal experience. I was about 15 and working my first job at a grocery store. A woman came in and started asking me questions. I had answers for all but one, and she used that as an excuse to criticize me and curse at me. Another customer, a woman with a stroller, took my side and told the woman to leave me alone. She said I was professional and actually helping. The woman did not stop, so the woman with the stroller raised her voice and confronted her, cursing back. It became so loud that everyone could hear, and the managers came to calm the situation. They sent me to the back to get away from everything. The managers only knew that the woman with the stroller was cursing at the other woman. They called the police, and the police arrested the woman who defended me while the other woman left. I did not learn about this until after the arrest, when a manager asked me what really happened, and I explained everything. Summary: a woman was looking for a reason to yell at someone in a grocery store and took it out on me. Another customer defended me but was arrested instead of the original woman. Story 9. We were at a party in college where the police arrived and everyone ran. The police were too slow to chase anyone. They yelled that anyone who returned would not get in trouble. They arrested and sent to jail all the kids who came back and apologized. They slammed some of them on the ground and kicked them for resisting. No one who left was affected. Story 10. Pretty much anything that is above and beyond for a retail position. You give these people what they want when they want it, and they expect it all the time. Story 11. I'm not really into competitive Super Smash Bros., but I remember one clip where two people were playing and one of them accidentally pulled their controller cord right out of the console. The player with the functional controller paused the game to plug it back in. Good sportsmanship. However, the player who had unplugged their controller called for a penalty because pausing the game was against the rules. As a result, the good sportsman was forced to give a free stock for pausing the game. Story 12. Scammers posed as stranded motorists, waited for kind-hearted people to pull over to assist, then proceeded to beat and rob them and steal their cars. Story 13. My neighbor wanted to do some landscaping and lay some flagstone. He borrowed my heavy-duty digging stick and wheelbarrow. After about a month of not getting them back, I visited him and saw the digging stick was rusty, lying in the mud. I took it, home. He knocked on my door a couple of days later and said he had returned the wheelbarrow. It was in my driveway. When I went to move it, I found it was broken beyond repair. He did not think I would notice. I had to buy a new one. Do not lend your tools. Story 14. My mom was stopped at a red light when a bicyclist rode into her stationary station wagon. She helped him into the back of the car and took him to the hospital. At the hospital, he claimed that she had hit him with her car while driving 50 miles per hour. Story 15. I am a florist. A while back, someone sent flowers to their friend who was in the hospital. The friend saw a feral cat in the road. She does not like cats but felt bad for it and tried to save it. She got her face and eyeball scratched by the cat. She managed to get the cat out of the road anyway. Then, she was hit by a car and broke an arm and a few ribs. Story 16. Franz Ferdinand survived an unsuccessful assassination attempt, but a bomb injured several bystanders. Ferdinand visited them in the hospital, and while driving away, his car stopped in front of one of the assassins who completed the assassination, starting the First World War. Story 17. Whistleblowers. I remember hearing about a nuclear power plant employee who said there were suspicious activities. He received threats against his family and life for speaking out. Story 18. You cover a colleague's shift because they had an emergency, but then your manager assumes you are always available and schedules you for extra shifts without asking. Story 19. When you let someone go in front of you out of kindness, and they turn out to be the slowest driver in the world. Story 20. My old aunt used to foster teenagers in the early 2000s and 2010s. She gave it up as she was getting older. One of her favorite former foster children called her after a decade. He had been in prison and had recently been released but was now arrested again. He could get home detention if he had a place to go. But he didn't have anyone. He was attacked in prison and pleaded for help. Of course, she let him stay, but he robbed her and broke her heart. Story 21. I am a physician and care deeply about my patients. Work-life balance is a huge struggle within the current healthcare system in the United States, and I believe I have been burned out for about 5 years. Since my schedule is usually booked at least 4 to 8 weeks in advance, I often add appointments at the beginning and end of days, and sometimes on my days off or holidays if the patient needs to be seen urgently. Unfortunately, this has been detrimental to me. There are days when I see patients for 11 hours and then complete notes, messages, and other tasks until bedtime, then repeat the cycle. I work about 60 to 70 hours per week, at least 20 of which are unpaid. A troubling trend I have noticed over the last few years is that the no-show or last-minute cancellation, anywhere from 10 minutes before the appointment to 20 minutes after its scheduled start, rate for these additional appointments is at least 50%. Patients will message me in crisis begging to be seen as soon as possible. I add them to the next morning's schedule, and then they do not show up. 2 days later, I might receive a message saying, "Oh, sorry, I slept through my alarm," or a patient might cancel 2 minutes before an appointment I added on my day off because they are hungry and going to lunch with a friend. This situation is frustrating and is making me more hesitant to add appointments outside my regular schedule. I call in sick an average of 4 days per year, and the latest I have ever been to an appointment was 15 minutes. It would be helpful if patients understood that when they do not show up, I do not get paid, even though I am waiting for them and wasting my own time. Story 22. Helping with extra tasks at work when needed, only to find out that these have now been unofficially added to your list of assigned daily duties. Story 23. Leaving a party. A friend took his car off the road at 60 miles per hour. I rushed him to the emergency room. While I was sitting there waiting to find out his condition, a police officer came up and asked me what happened. I told him the situation. He drew my blood because I admitted I had been drinking. I blew a 0.09. He arrested me and gave me a driving under the influence charge for taking my friend to the emergency room. I thought the Affordable Care Act had made it legal to take overdoses and drug-related incidents to the hospital to prevent avoidable deaths from overdoses and alcohol poisoning. My state opted out of it. Yes, I realized drinking and driving is not acceptable. I was 19 years old. I did not know how much my friend had been drinking. We did not coordinate him following me or anything. We just happened to be going the same way. Story 24. Had my pay reduced for taking 15 minutes on the clock to help with a broken-down car. Two elderly women who could not afford a tow had been there for over 6 hours in the heat. Story 25. You bail a friend out with money when they are drowning in bills, and instead of thanking you, they avoid you out of shame. Congratulations, you just bought yourself the perfect example of no good deed goes unpunished. Lost the cash and the friend. Story 26. Setting up and arranging regular group activities, Facebook groups, clubs, and similar gatherings. It is inevitable that at some point someone will criticize everything you have done, complain about the setup, and suggest someone else runs it better. Story 27. Watch the miniseries Show Me a Hero. It is the true story of a politician who is trying to do the right thing. The title is derived from an F. Scott Fitzgerald quote. Show me a hero and I will write you a tragedy. Story 28. Al Gore supported legislation that helped develop the internet. People mocked him for claiming credit for that. Story 29. My coworker and I were asked to fix a video as soon as possible for upper management. They had generated it with artificial intelligence, but it was poor quality and needed to be ready by the next day for a special presentation with other shareholders. We completed it before the deadline. The following week, we were made redundant, and they informed us that our jobs were being outsourced to artificial intelligence. Story 30. Just trying my best and then being made to feel guilty for not doing it right, especially when I had one impression of what they wanted and it turns out it is the exact opposite. Either my memory and hearing are poor, my mom is terrible at communicating, or she has been gaslighting me all my life. I also have a moment with an ex I am still upset about, but for the sake of their privacy, I will only say it involved me panicking over a decision and it turning out to be the wrong one despite everything telling me it was correct. Story 31. You see a stray dog on the road, clearly hungry, so you stop, buy some biscuits, and feed it. The next day, the same dog follows you home and starts barking all night. Your neighbors complain, and one of them even threatens to call the municipal dog catchers on you. Your one good act spiraled into drama. That is no good deed goes unpunished. Story 32. If you find a motherless kitten and cannot adopt it yourself, just drop it off with a rescue. Right? Wrong. You need to find one that even accepts feral kittens. They are generally unpleasant to deal with, rude and unprofessional, and if they even agree to accept it, you have to make an appointment and then take it to them. After all that, they expect you to pay them. All because you could not let a kitten cry until it died of thirst, starvation, or something else. On a related note, if you want to trap, neuter, vaccinated, and return a breeding stray or feral cat, the expectation is that you pay in time, effort, and so on for the privilege of catching, transporting, and returning, in addition to paying for sterilization and any other veterinary treatment. I am not saying veterinarians do not deserve to be paid, of course, but it does not feel fair to try to do the responsible thing and instead of being thanked, you get charged. Story 33. At work, if you have a good idea to solve someone's problem when you overhear they are having an issue, you end up with more workload for the same compensation. That is why I keep my solutions to myself. Story 34. Years ago, I was at a friend's place, and they were taking a bunch of gravel to get a buzz. It wasn't my thing, but I didn't judge. I just didn't participate. To be honest, I was there to cook honey oil. One guy ended up doing the funky chicken and foaming at the mouth. I panicked and started hiding everything, anticipating the impending emergency call. I ran everything out the back, then came back in to check on my buddy. Nobody seemed to care. I said, "Is anyone going to call an ambulance?" They replied, "We'll call if he stops breathing." After the shock of that statement faded, I called emergency services. Police, fire department, and ambulance showed up and took my buddy out on a stretcher. A few days later, he was out of the hospital and we were chatting. I told him I was looking for an eighth of weed. He said he knew a guy and would hook me up. Just wait here, and I'll be back in 15 minutes. As you might have guessed, he never came back. I don't know if I saved his life, but I definitely did more than his so-called friends, and he ripped me off for $40 a couple of days later. Story 35. My best friend and I let a male coworker of hers stay on our couch for a while when he was going through a rough patch. He was pretty broke, so we didn't charge him any rent. He just cooked and bought groceries when he could. One night, we met up with him and another man at the bar. He was very drunk and asked if I could take him home. Sure. At the apartment, he started getting handsy, and I rejected him. We argued. He said, "Forget you. I'm going to drink more." I told him no way, do not drive because I was sober and he was way too drunk. He started screaming at me, and I said if he drove, he needed to take all his things and leave. He agreed to sleep it off. I went to meet my best friend and others at a different bar. He showed up and confronted me. He was kicked out. Then he started calling my friends' cell phones, threatening to take our cats because he claimed he was the one who took care of them, which was not true. When we tried to leave, he stood in front of my car, daring me to drive. I moved forward just enough to tap him, and he reacted as if he was hit at 90 miles per hour. I swerved around him and we went home. He returned, refused to leave or give us his key, and said maybe he would harm himself and not wake up the next day. We had to call the police. He threatened suicide in front of officers and tried to get me arrested for assault, claiming I ran him over. It did not work. He told them I was driving drunk, so I had to take a breathalyzer test. Because of his behavior, I was not intoxicated. I had only one drink and was sober. Eventually, he collected his things and was given a ride to his father's house. It was about 4 a.m. The next day, he called my workplace, saying thanks for making him homeless. I hung up. He called again and again until I told him I would call the police again if he did not stop. About a year later, he was arrested for driving under the influence after crashing into a house. Thankfully, there were no injuries. What a mess. Story 36. Holding the door for a woman carrying 3 large lattes. Then she spills one on the front of your pants. True story from yesterday. Story 37. Kamala Harris offered an America 100% better than what we have now, and she was criticized for being moderately liberal, black and Indian, and a woman. Story 38. Walking home late after a night out in town with my then boyfriend, both in our early 20s at the time, we spotted a fire in a bin next to a school. We phoned the police to let them know, and about 5 minutes later, a police van pulled up and asked if we knew anything about the fire. We said yes, we had reported it. Then they accused us of starting the fire. They began questioning us about where we had been, where we were going, and what we knew about the fire. This made my boyfriend start getting argumentative, so the next thing we knew, we were sitting in the back of a police van until they confirmed our identification and address. My boyfriend was difficult, but they really made us feel like criminals. Next time, if there is no danger to life, the school can burn to the ground. Story 39. More than 20 years ago, I worked as a police officer in the United Kingdom. We received a call about a fatal road collision. A vehicle had stalled on one of our fast motorways, similar to a United States expressway, with a speed limit of around 60 miles per hour. 2 men in a van had stopped to help a woman, and all 3 were trying to push the car to safety when someone driving a moving van while using their mobile phone collided with them, killing all 3 instantly. It was a horrific scene. I will spare the details. No good deed goes unpunished. Story 40. On Friday, I was driving on a highway in the middle lane. About half a mile ahead, there was a police officer with someone pulled over on the shoulder of the right lane. A large truck pulling a tractor was trying to get into the middle lane to avoid the police officer, but no one would let them in. I slowed down a little to give them space to merge. As soon as they were in the middle lane, a rock fell off the tractor and smashed my windshield. Story 41. I returned a lost wallet and really did the owner a favor. I tracked him down to give him his wallet back. There was only $4 inside, but it contained all his credit cards and identification. When I finally contacted him and he came to retrieve the wallet, I had a small amount of cannabis on me. For some reason, he brought the police with him. They arrested me. It was a real disaster. I was in jail for several months over this situation. Story 42. My dad is a youth sporting tournament director in my city. He calls hotels to ask if they will give a discount to teams registered for the tournament. Any hotel offering this is recommended for club teams coming in. One hotel downtown agreed, and an entire club team stayed there. Sunday after the tournament, he received an email from the hotel asking him to never mention them again when people ask for recommendations. Apparently, the parents got very drunk and were causing problems in the bar. They finally got the parents to leave the lobby around 4 a.m. The kids ran wild during this and woke almost all the guests. Hotel employees were trying to gather the kids because they could not find them all. The employees tried to use the elevator, but one drunk dad stayed in it, teaching everyone how to make rude gestures, still on Sunday morning. He had been there all night. Apparently, he was doing this mostly to 10-year-olds. Then he encouraged the kids to make rude gestures to other guests. The kids were screaming so loudly during breakfast that guests were getting up and leaving. The hotel said there were other issues but did not provide details. Story 43. I work helping people in need. For everyone, there are people who abuse every loophole. Sometimes you realize they have deceived you. It is disappointing. Story 44. I did not take any leave when my wife had our son because my boss was very cheap. We were in the middle of relocating our offices, and I was in charge of information technology and layout. I had to work double shifts and sometimes even sleep in the office to make things happen. I sacrificed time with my wife and newborn, time I will never get back, because my boss cared more about saving money and completing the office move than about his employees. That is not dedication rewarded. That is exploitation disguised as commitment. There were many examples like that throughout my career with the company. After 15 years, I quit and started my own business. I may not make as much money, but I am happy and have time to dedicate to my family and myself. Story 45. Doing a very good job in the trades while others do very little poor quality work, and then being told I am not a team player. Story 46. I took a paid time off day from work and decided to go to my sister's house to teach my nieces how to crochet. I was bitten by their dog, and my nieces lost interest after about 2 minutes. Story 47. I tried to help my severely traumatized ex-wife with her difficulties over the years, making her as comfortable as possible. I handled many things for us, such as taxes and finding places to live. Her trauma resurfaced strongly when she felt safe, and she decided to leave me to deal with her issues. During the divorce, she told me that I was controlling her because of all the things I did to improve our lives. This does not even include the fact that she lied to herself and me about why she left, which caused me deep depression. She also used me for visa and financial purposes after our separation. Yet, this was still labeled as controlling behavior when she was the only one benefiting from it. Story 48. Karma in action. I had a neighbor who was always grumpy and unfriendly. One day, I saw a dog stranded in heavy rain and did not hesitate to shelter it. Fast forward a week, he lost his wallet, and guess what? A random person found it and returned it. Story 49. Being honest about matters for which no official written record exists, such as security clearance or licensing investigations. Story 50. Oh, like letting your homeless friend stay at your place until he gets drunk, damages the property, and tries to stab you. Story 51. Just heard about this yesterday. A popular YouTuber was permanently banned from Roblox for harassing some of the many pedophiles on the platform. Story 52. I ordered a textbook on Amazon. The class starts in 2 days and the book has not arrived yet, even though it is past the delivery window. I called customer support and asked them to expedite a replacement. The replacement arrived, and a couple of days later the original order finally arrived as well. I called customer support to ask what they wanted me to do with the extra copy. I spent the next half hour explaining that I was not trying to steal the book. I was calling to return it. Never again. If they send me an extra, it is mine now. Shaking my head. Story 53. A tree blew down onto the road by my house. I took my chainsaw and tractor to cut it and push it off the road. One of the branches hit the valve on the tractor where the coolant drains, and it started pouring out. Story 54. I tried to tell someone that idling in the fire lane could earn them a $200 ticket from the parking authority, and they started cursing at me. Story 55. Joe Rogan was kind enough to be honest with Brendan Schaub that he was never going to be a mixed martial arts champion and he should stop fighting because he was just getting more brain damage with nothing to really show for it. As a result, Brendan became a stand-up comedian and podcaster. The world has been punished severely by his forays into those fields ever since. Story 56. This is a completely inconsequential and low-stakes example, but probably 12 or 13 years ago, a buddy who is like a brother used to play World of Warcraft with me. We were running Tempest Keep together since he agreed to help me do a run to hopefully get the Ashes, a rare Phoenix mount with about a 1% chance to drop. They dropped, and he told me to take them. Like a fool, I told him we would roll for them since he helped me. He won the roll. That was about 13 years ago. I only finally got the Ashes for myself about 2.5 weeks ago. Story 57. I spent $50 on shipping for my college roommate's mother's anniversary outfit because her family lost their business and I knew money was tight. She paid for the dress, but shipping was very expensive. I said nothing, covered the cost, and gave her the outfit. I was smiling at her mother in the suit at the party, and they exchanged strange looks as if I was running off with their money or deceiving them. I stopped talking to my roommate after she asked me in front of a group of people if I was dating a famous man. Story 58. Fighting legally in court for the residents of your apartment community and being evicted for it. Then having the court not recognize the retaliatory eviction, causing 4 years of homelessness so far. I do have a recreational vehicle now, but it damaged my credit so much that it cost me over $2,500 in non-refundable application fees trying to find another apartment, only to be automatically denied repeatedly. Story 59. In 1919, Ford wanted to use extra profits to raise employee wages and employ more people. Dodge sued them, saying a corporation's only responsibility is to increase shareholder value. This set the precedent for current United States corporate law. Story 60. Christmas in Mexico. I passed by the pool in the hotel and picked up a ball that someone had thrown onto the land. My brand new iPhone, which was my Christmas gift, dropped from my pocket into the pool. Story 61. Do not ever tell a friend you know their significant other is cheating, even if you personally witnessed it. You will get blamed somehow. Story 62. I was an emotional support for a coworker when she was feeling down because of her boyfriend. Now she is my ex's intimate partner, and he ended our relationship coldly. She says I am the one preventing her happiness with him, even though I know he only wants a physical relationship with her. Story 63. Contracting a sexually transmitted disease after giving a young woman some money to buy food, following a brief conversation in the back of the car. Seriously, just trying to help a woman get ahead. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.